Welcome to Commander Central episode 19. Today will be a special live roundtable episode. Not obviously right now. We're actually recording right now in the Dungeon of Love, but we'll be recording in the Cave of Torment at our local card shop for the roundtable. Since it's Christmas time, we didn't want to record Christmas week. We got a bunch of people together at our local card shop and had a discussion about Magic. Audio quality is not quite as good as we usually do. We had to use our kind of radio mic, and we were in a room that wasn't as well soundproofed as the Dungeon of Love is. That is not the case at the shop. We'd like to thank D20 Gaming in Eau Claire, Wisconsin for hosting us. We appreciate it. Anything you guys want to add before we get going?
I think it was a great show, and hope everybody else enjoys it as much as we did recording it.
Yeah, it was pretty fun, singing all those carols and all that.
It was a joyous Christmas time. All right, well, we're going to start the live episode here in a minute. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll be back with a normal show after the holidays. Well, all right, let's get started here, and we'll go around the table. Just say your first name and how long you've been playing Commander.
I'm Lucas. I've been playing Commander for about 4 years now.
I'm Blake. I've been playing Commander since about 2012.
I'm Nate, and I'm playing Commander for about 5 years, since 2012.
I'm Alex. I've also been playing Commander for about 5 years, since 2012.
Wow, I'm Adam, and I've been playing Commander for about a year.
All right, the noob.
Yeah.
And I'm Max. I've been playing since 2012.
And I'm Chris. I like long walks on the beach and dogs. And I don't remember when I started playing Commander. It was a while ago.
I'm about 2012 as well. This is Dana. You know me. You know Chris. You know Max. So first things first, before any questions, we've got a game. And Max is going to keep track of points here. This is like the warm-up exercise, and I'm using EDH Rec for the data here. This is pretty straightforward. It's the top 3 most frequently used cards in each category. If you get the number 1 right, you get 3 points. Number 2 is 2. Number 1 is.
We get to guess as well.
Lightning bolt.
Yeah, you guys do too.
Okay.
I will not be involved, but because I know the answers. But
It's like being the banker in Monopoly.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
You just get to cheat and just put all the money in.
Stormcrow. It's like real.
Right. You've won. Stormcrow wins.
I'm doing it.
So first one is creature. What's your guess for the most frequently used creature in Commander?
Ewit.
Well, I was going to go on the table.
Oh, my bad.
Who are we starting?
So we'll start with Max here, I guess.
We'll just go that way then.
All right, so that's Max and Chris. What's your answer?
So most frequently played creature.
It's really hard.
I'm going to guess Llanowar Elves.
Adam, what do you got?
Come back to me. I need more time.
Deathrite Shaman.
That's our challenge, all right? Nate.
Jens, Sad Robot.
Blake.
Oh, that's really good. Because I can't pick that, I'm going to go Baleful Strix.
I'm
Last-
not much of a creature player, so my guess is Mother of Runes.
Number 1 is Eternal Witness.
Oh.
Wow.
3 points there. Number 2 is Sakura Child Elder.
Oh.
And number 3 is Sun Titan.
Sun Titan. Wow.
I just got
I
done
mean, he
playing
is
one. How come I
one
didn't?
flashy dude.
I was surprised though at Sun Titan. I didn't think that would be.
Yeah.
That's a.
I would have guessed Sad Robot as soon as Nate said
Yeah,
that.
it
I
would,
was
it
like,
would have been.
I would've
It
too.
would have been prime time if it hadn't been banned.
You're right. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
that's
for
true.
sure.
So it makes sense.
So we'll go the other way this time, and we'll go with instants.
My guess is probably swords. Plowshares.
Probably Path.
Swords and Path. All right.
I like swords, but I have to pick.
And you can repeat. You
I
can
can
repeat.
repeat?
You can repeat.
But I won't. Sprout Swarm.
Sprouts. Okay. Well,
Cultivate.
not an instant.
Not an
Oh
instant.
shit, that's a sorcery.
Yeah.
I'm really good at this game. I swear I've played before. Oh man, now I have to like sort in my brain.
I'm just happy we started this.
I
time
play
so I
everything.
get one
I
and
play
two.
everything at sorcery speed anyway, because that's my play style. Jeez. Now I'm put on the spot. I'm gonna go with Doomblade. I'm gonna
Do-
go
all
back
right,
with
all right.
Only but a goodie.
How
Counterspell.
dare you?
I know.
Counterspell.
Rift. I'm going with
Rift.
Yeah, that's an instant.
Max is running away with it.
I'm going to go with Brainstorm then, since Max took Rift.
Rift is number 1. Swords to Plowshares is number 2.
Yeah.
Counterspell is number 3.
What?
Nailed it. I'm on the board.
That was gonna be my guess.
People are leaving Pat in the dust on that.
So
Monastery
I'm,
sucking up the inventory here. What's
I'm going to file a grievance right now
Yeah.
and say that Max knows all the answers. This is hog
I'm
going on right here.
Yeah, I'm a little suspicious. I did not tell him and that I was asking these questions.
I was told there was a game involved, but not
The next one's going to be a
questions.
real clear, like, thing. Will be like, you're like, what's the most popular enchantment? And he'll be like, oh, boy, debitors now?
Like, ding! Next one we'll do sorceries. We'll start with Chris.
The most popular sorcery?
Yep.
Can't take mine.
Right, yes, right. You cannot take
Cultivate's
out.
taken.
So if you're going cultivate, I'm going to go with Kadama's Reach then.
Max.
Wrath of God.
Demonic Tutor.
So we got a cultivate from Alex already. Nate.
Oh boy. I can't even think of a card's name. Yeah. I want to do Kodama's Reach also, I guess. I'm going to start repeating.
All right.
I'm going to do Diabolic Tutor, just on a hunch that maybe there's more people who can't afford one of the
It's a good thought.
demonics.
Then they're
you know.
demonics, yeah.
What's the 2-drop? What's the 2-drop cultivate?
Farseek.
Not Farseek, the basic land one.
Nature's
That's a
Lore.
good one.
Nature's Aura, Rampant
Nature's
Growth.
Path?
Rampant.
Rampant growth.
No one said
That's
Rampant
Rampant
Growth.
Rampant growth.
Number 1 is cultivate.
Oh, I did it!
Number 2 is Kodama's Reach. Somebody guessed that. That was a guess somewhere. And number 3 is Demonic Tutors. So all 3
Wow.
got said.
Damn.
Wow, we got all
Where
three
is
of them.
Diabolic? Is that on? Is it close?
It was like 4th or 5th. It was on the list.
I knew it'd be up there.
That makes sense, though. I like
Right.
the
Okay,
order
easy.
tracks.
What do you wanna run
Here's
for?
some easy points for people.
Okay.
Artifacts.
Ooh. I'm gonna go soaring.
I don't know that one.
So you know what? We'll skip number 1.
Alright.
Since number 1 is soaring. Guess one that isn't
Oh,
soaring.
boy.
My next guess would probably be Mind Stone.
Okay.
Question: is our artifact creatures only included in the creature
Non-cre-
list?
non-creature artifact.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
I am going to go with Relic of Progenitus.
Okay.
I don't like that. I'm going to say Commander Spare.
Sensei's Divining Top.
Sword of Feast and Famine.
I'm gonna have to copy the Commander Sphere over there.
It's
Manolith.
I feel like that's
Wow.
We had to talk about this.
Throwing it in my
Pretty,
face.
You know, it's really out there.
1 is obviously Soul Ring.
Yep.
Lightning Greaves.
Did none of us name Lightning Greaves or
No,
something?
No.
Wow. What's
And
wrong
then
with us?
then like
Like
nine
spells.
9 of the next 10 are signets.
Okay, what do we get
Nobody-
after signets though?
So
we-
Swiftfoot Boots
I
now.
want to.
Alright.
Wow. So we're all bad at magic.
We're all
so
bad
you can
at
all
magic.
go home and turn off your computers now. It's fine.
All right, Chris, enchantments.
Sylvan Library.
Phyrexian Arena.
You can repeat it.
Copy, you get the points.
I don't want to copy you.
You get the points.
Alright, Phyrexian Arena.
Blood Moon?
Good
that
guess.
choice.
Oh, Blood Moon, huh?
Because sometimes you just got a moon on.
That is true.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with Bad Moon then.
All right. All right.
All right.
This is a little repeat. I'm gonna go with Blind Obedience.
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm gonna go. Man, I played like 18 Enchantress decks, but all
Yeah, I know.
really weird. So I'm gonna go ahead and say Phyrexian Unlife.
I want to change my answer.
Phyrexian Arena's 1.
Yep.
Rhystic Studies 2. Sylvan Libraries 3.
Mystic Study.
Mirari's Wake is number 4.
Mari's Wake is on the list. It was the first multicolor
And
enchantment.
I only learned that was an enchantment like last week when I realized I could fetch it with a tutor, and I definitely thought it was an artifact.
Like almost all the stuff is monocolored just because it goes in the most wanted decks. But
Right.
multicolor, Mari's Wake was number 2. Was number 1 multicolor.
The host representing.
All right, last one.
Totally forgot Rhystic Study.
Planeswalker.
Me too.
I like that.
Planeswalkers. Ooh. I am gonna say
That's a tricky one.
Elspeth Sun's Champion.
Oh wait, I have one for this. Hassan's Champion. Oh.
Tybalt.
Are you looking for the
Two.
other two?
It's a two-drop red.
Yeah, it's 2-drop.
The
he's
best
red.
dressed Planeswalker in Magic.
No, Baby Jace. That's the
Which one is that? They're
original Jace Belair.
Okay, thank you.
I'm gonna go with Jace Vern's Prodigy.
I'm gonna go Nicol Bolas Planeswalker. Because sometimes Bo Daddy.
Bo Daddy.
Bo Daddy.
I'm also going to go Elspeth Sun's Champion.
Ugin, the Spirit Dragon.
I'm going to pick Dak Faden.
Well, the top three are all monocolor. Elspeth Sun's Champion is 1. Tezzeret the Seeker is 2. And Liliana Vess is 3.
Oh,
That's really.
Yep.
She tutors.
She does.
She does, but
that
it's on
tutor.
the top of the
It's a
library.
vampiric tutor is what it does.
But
Yeah, well,
Bolus,
Vampire Tutor was a sorcery speed action for 5 mana. Who
Bol-
wants
She
that?
used
I
to
love
do it
how offended
twice.
you are by getting a
Right.
card in a black deck.
If you ask me,
Pish posh, sir.
Bish pot.
How dare I put this Necropotence on top of my library? How dare I, sir?
Bolus Planeswalker was number 1 among multicolors. But there you go.
Well, how many multicolored planeswalkers are on the top?
2.
Like,
So what are our
at
numbers
least?
here, Max?
I really thought Dak Faden would have been up there.
He is the greatest thief in the
I think he's
multiverse.
just too hard to
He
come
is my
by.
other choice.
Was he?
I think he would be, except that there's not necessarily a lot of blue-red, and
True.
it's harder to come by because that is a card that people like legacy players.
And it's not
activate.
even that expensive of a card anymore, neither.
No, he's down. What is he like? 15 bucks now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
pick one up.
Compared
But he
to
was
when
real
was
hard
at,
until his
like,
last
50 and
report. He
60.
was like a
Happily
$40
sold
card.
mine at 60.
There you go.
Good time. Good
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
So the non-host players, Adam and Lucas are tied at 5 points. Alex has 3.
Yes.
Nate has 2, and Blake unfortunately did not get on the board.
Oh no!
He had Diabolic
Yeah.
to mine.
Yeah.
Never mind.
But I
Otherwise-
had the number 1 amount of answers of things that were almost
Almost
on
there.
the board.
You're the first person to get a participation trophy.
That's right.
Well,
Number
I
1
do.
participant.
I have one. I did not anticipate a tie, so I'll have to bring in because I know I have one more of these at home. I'll bring it in next week. But the winner of gets a foil reliquary tower. I'll bring one in for you next week, Adam.
Nice.
So
Like
for
that.
being the trivia master,
The one question
nice.
that you didn't ask was the most popular land in Commander.
I wrote it down, but I thought, the problem is it's command towers 1, and then it's two cycles because you have to
Right.
pick.
Yeah.
So you want to guess what the cycles are after command tower?
Shocks and fetches. Right?
Lifelines.
Yeah.
Trilands was number 1.
Oh,
Oh,
Really?
They are
Yeah.
really good.
They are very,
I mean-
very useful.
Sure.
And they were just printed, so they're everywhere.
That makes sense.
Followed by shocks. So
Without him against the Drylands, that's interesting.
And here I am going, oh, duel?
Yes.
Yeah, alpha beta duel.
I guess
is
that's what
the
happens
word.
when people play 3 colors. Whoa.
I actually wasn't when I was looking at it. I didn't
love
think
my
of
three
command.
colors.
I was trying to guess, and I'm like, I forgot about command tower, but that's obviously number 1. All right, so questions for people. Just go on the table here. Why do you play Commander? Why have you chosen Commander as format to put time and energy into? Is there any reason it jumps out at you?
The main reason I play is because I tend to get bored with the 60 card formats really quickly. It's just the consistency makes it feel like it plays out at the same time every time, and it just bores me really quickly.
Okay.
I read a little parody article a while back where somebody was talking about why like Modern's bad, and I don't believe Modern's bad. I don't play a lot of it or anything. But
Shots fired.
right.
Listen, I know. But they were like,
he has
it's
a
like
gold deck.
it was supposed to be. They were supposed to be like parody, and they're like, oh, just like a Goldfish turn 4 format. And that's really what I like about Commanders. It's the opposite. Is like you can't really Goldfish to consistency, and it's not a turn 4 format unless things go horribly wrong
Or horribly
or
right.
horribly right, depending on what side of the deck you're on. But yeah, it's got a good length to it.
Okay.
I originally would have said I like trying to make bad cards work, but I think I just like bad cards. I don't care if they work.
I primarily play Legacy, so when I sit down to play Commander, it's for the community, for the good time with friends that I enjoy just BSing with. Probably much as to the chagrin of the people around me who would rather I just like shut up and play.
I guess to me, Commander seems a little bit like the connoisseur's format for the game. Because to Blake's point, you play Modern, and it's rare you get past like turn 5. You don't get to see much of the game. In Commander, you get to see everything really,
Right.
really
Aside
played
from
out.
those turn 3 cigardas.
Yeah.
Except for that one time.
Turn 4 hatred kills.
Right. Yeah.
I'm gonna say like Commander's the only game that I've ever gone turn to Jace the Mind Sculptor, and that felt pretty
Right.
good.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
And you can do that and still lose.
yes.
Which is
yeah.
what's great about
Yeah,
Commander.
right. And let me tell you, if after you play that turn 4 hatred, you usually do.
Right. Yes. Right. That's the problem. Then everyone focuses on you.
Well, that's the other thing too is that you do have to survive after killing somebody, and that's an aspect that really doesn't exist in other forms of Magic unless you're like in a conspiracy or something.
Right.
I mean, you have to play a little, like, you don't necessarily want to bet it all life game, but you do have to have a way to not die.
it's the format where you can do weird things and still be competitive. Like if you show up to a modern format with your goat deck, you're
And I sure have.
and you've tried that, Blake.
Many a time.
You're just not going to win.
Sure don't. Many a time.
And in Commander, you can build a goat deck that works. I mean, you're not going to win every game, but like you can win.
Right, and it's I mean, I'm just waiting on that goat commander still. You know
That's the
legendary
missing
goat.
piece.
It's a Kithkin Shepherd, thank you.
Right.
I'll take it. I'll allow it.
Bo Peep.
The Island Dude, there we go.
He's jacked.
Just giant.
Does it come with a legendary artifact that's Peep's bow?
It's a staff. It's a bow staff.
Oh, okay, yes, yeah. There we go.
So let's focus on 2017 here a little bit. We had one unbanning this year, which was Protean Hulk, and we had one banning, which was, anyone remember? Leovold, which I forgot when I was like looking
Also,
this up.
I cheated it. You wrote
Did you? Okay. Oh, I did. Okay.
I didn't remember this. So that's
Yeah.
fine.
There weren't any big rules changes this year either. So, generally speaking, is everyone happy with the format? Unhappy with the format? Because the rules committee seems generally happy with it. They didn't make many changes.
I feel we're in a real good spot right now. I mean, I'm not running into any like overly broken decks. I don't see any huge complaints about, oh my god, this one's super oppressive or in every meta. I think we're real good. I feel like Leovold's a good ban, and Protean Hulk is certainly a pain to deal with, but you hold on to removal and you're really set there, you know?
Okay.
I haven't seen Protean Hulk since he's got unbanned.
The problem is his combo is actually fairly difficult to maneuver, and in a 4-player format, very easy to disrupt overall. I mean, there's enough graveyard hate. I mean, if you're not bringing Bog to the game and you're playing black, you're doing something wrong. But I'm going to be honest, like, as a Legacy player, like, Leovold was something that I really, like, I own Leovolds. I like casting Leovolds. I was a little sad to see him go because
Me and you both.
the infinite value against my opponent
Sure.
was just worth it to me, and it was something that I actually look forward to when I cast him. Right, he doesn't actually present much of a board threat beyond I get things you don't, and I think that that's an interesting piece of the game that Wizards sometimes strays away from because it's seen as unfun.
I think that if Leovold was unbanned, that would also be a fine spot to be in right now.
I think
That would,
Leovold is a bit like Protean Hulk in that it kind of self-regulates. You
Right,
just
right.
don't bring your Leovold deck out when people are looking to goof around.
If
Right.
Leovold existed, he'd be sort of in that same spot as like a Nekuzar deck. Where somebody's like, oh, I brought Leovold, people would be like, and you also brought...
Right.
and
then
for
you
after
put in-
that game...
Then you put in the commander that you enjoy drawing a million cards but
Sure.
doing nothing else, or whatever your other niche.
Damia?
Yeah,
I guess. That's where that would be like the backup commander.
I feel like the Nekuzar comparison is a
Arcanus
little bit
comes to mind.
off. When I think of Leovold, I think of like ultra competitive, lock people out, more along the lines of Zur
Draw lots of counter spells.
and
Yeah,
other-
more. You know what? Now that you say, I think you're right. More like a Zur or a Gadak T, which we were just talking about earlier.
Yeah, he certainly presents himself as a control strategy,
Mhm.
but I don't know that control is a strategy to stray away from. But I will admit, the fact that it's any of your permanents get targeted makes it just like swing way in the favor of Leovold, right? Like you can't wasteland, you can't,
Right.
You can't strip mine, etc. You just lose at that point.
Well, and you just accidentally also screwed over hands. Like you play Leovold, and the person was there like, I've got a Sign in Blood and a Night's Whisper in hand that I was going to cast next turn, and now I'm holding 2 cards that do nothing, and I'm in top deck mode. So just accidentally, it could like, it's almost screwed over good deck building in a way.
Right.
Whereas if you're just packing all creatures, you're like, oh, whatever, I'll just keep playing my Crowworms.
My goat deck is gonna just shine with
Right,
the
right,
unbanning.
yeah.
Oh.
Would he be at all ban worthy if we still had banned as commander rather than just complete bans?
I think if we still had like where you could run them in a 99, I don't think he'd be a problem.
No.
I agree.
Oh yeah.
I agree with that.
I think there's a lot of those commanders that are that way though.
Oh yeah, a lot
So,
of fun bad cards.
all right. So everyone's pretty happy with how things are this year. I agree as well. I don't think there needs to be any big changes.
I also. Oh,
Cyclonic Rift needs to be banned.
Well, actually, that was the one point I was going to make. Because I was shocked to see Rift being the most frequently played instant spell. Does that mean it's ban worthy though?
Not because it's played so much. I think it just is so disruptive to the game because it's like it doesn't seem like it's played as a win con. It's just like
Yep.
I rift, and now the game takes an hour longer than it would have.
That would be my biggest complaint with that card. If one thing is a problem with EDH, it's game time, right? Like I can't
Sure.
sit in a chair and expect a game to go an hour if people are packing Rift. It's going to start the game at 0, and or someone's going to Rift and then win the game. It's only one or the other.
Right.
And I feel like that level of swinginess makes the card sometimes really unfun to play against.
It is very unfun.
I also feel like it's kind of the same spot as why I wish they would ban Soul Ring. Not because I don't love Soul Ring, but because an EDH deck is 98 cards in Soul Ring.
Yep.
There's no reason to not run Soul Ring in the deck.
Right, and in the blue deck, there's no it's in the blue deck you're playing 97 cards.
Right.
There's even fewer cards you get.
Would you
to play.
feel that way about Rift if it was like double blue in either of the casting costs?
I feel like if Rift was sorcery speed, I'd be absolutely fine with it.
Well,
But the fact that you can do end
So
of
it would be
turn,
more like an evacuation type of deal or whatever.
Yeah.
right. Well, I mean, because evacuation's instant, but like a washout or
Or like
Okay.
an unbanned upheaval or something like that.
right, yeah.
Well, the
yeah.
double blue is a good point because there are like Necropotence is a ridiculously good card. I think everyone realizes it.
Yeah.
But you don't put it in every black deck because hitting triple black is not something you can do in a 3 or 4 or 5 color deck or whatever.
Right.
If you have blue, you can and probably should run Rift in your deck. I mean, just for power level reasons. Like it's going to be easy to cast in any deck that has blue, and it's going to be backbreaking.
Let me ask you this, and maybe this is a confession, personal problem. Is it bad that when, and this may be just how bad Cyclonic Rift is for blue decks in general, is that I started putting Muddle the Mixture
To
into
fetch
blue decks
just to fetch
just
Rift.
because, like, it is a 2-drop spell, Cyclonic Rift,
Yep.
and sometimes Muddle the Mixture is a pretty good counter spell to have.
I don't feel that it's wrong to do that because, especially if you're tutor it when you're gonna win the game, or pretty much knock out 2 people, leave 1 person left, then that's fine. But if you're tutoring it just to reset the board state because you're behind or you can't win, just to like screw over people, then I don't like something like that.
Right, and that's the thing with a lot of cards that are pretty degenerate, is that they feel that way because they just make the game go longer.
Yes.
Like Cyclonic Rift could be fine if it had a rule text that said, only play this when you can win the game next turn without disruption.
That
That's
sounds-
fine.
So kind of like a Final Fortune, take an additional
Sure.
turn, but
You
then
know
you
what?
lose after that.
That's what makes it work.
Yes.
A Cyclonic Rift, but you die next turn.
You lose on your next end step. Or
Mm.
Yeah.
something to that.
Well, one of my biggest arguments against Rift is the fact that I've killed people. Like when I've had a choice in a game, I'm looking at player A, B, or C. Player C is blue and might have a Rift in hand next turn. I'm going to kill that person. Like I make that
That's-
decision based on Rift.
That's a logical choice.
And it makes sense.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they're going to set you at 0 and you're not going to be able to recover while they or dag send you to death.
Right.
Also, I mean, Rift is just too good on so many levels. Too. If Rift was creatures only, it'd be fine. You can still like come back from everything.
Yeah.
You got all your rocks. You got all your like whatever wacky enchantments going on.
Or if it was an Austere command base where you get to choose.
Right.
All
also,
enchantments and
would be
artifacts go
fine.
back to people's hands,
So
or
you're talking like
all
a merciless
creatures.
eviction of bounce.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a cool card.
I feel like another nerf it could have is the fact that it's good when you overload it, or it's also good in a pinch for 2 mana. The fact that it has that versatility
That
makes
is a
it
nice,
lot,
I have-
lot
nice little
stronger.
thing.
I've absolutely seen people save themselves with a non-overloaded Rift
Oh
before.
yeah.
Yep.
Oh, I've definitely
yep.
done it myself.
Whereas Insurrection, you're just holding a 8 mana card that you can only use when you have your 8 mana free.
Right.
Rift is never a dead
And
card.
that way, Rift is a lot like a cycling card too. Like all those cards that have a real good effect, but it's also like, I mean, sometimes you cycle Decree of Pain and it's just like really good.
Mhm.
Totally
Yeah.
done it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's great. When you're playing much against the tokens, you're just like, oh,
Bye bye tokens. I will draw a card.
I only wanted one anyway.
Well, my next question was basically any specific issues you think the format has, and Cyclonic Rift sounds like the only one. Is there anything else anyone can think of?
To
I
be
mean,
fair,
even- oh,
I haven't actually seen a Cyclonic Rift in quite a while. Although I guess that's just because all people that I play with really regularly aren't really big blue players.
Okay.
I also feel, even though Cyclonic Rift has all these flaws and things too, I don't feel like it's crushing the meta or driving people away. I mean, it's not it's a card that I would ban if I had like a magical ban wand.
So so if you guys were all in charge
Dare
individually,
say
would you ban it?
Yeah, I would
Yes.
Some kind of
hammer.
hammer, perhaps.
So
I
you
would say
you'd hit it.
no.
Okay, so you let it sit, Lucas. Blake, would you ban it if you had
I'd
the power to
actually
do
probably
so?
let it sit at this current point in time.
Okay.
I might want to collect data, but
I'm a big fan of degenerate magic. I'd let it stay.
All right.
It really depends if I could also unban cards. Because if I can unban cards, then maybe I would ban it. But
I'm totally with you on
But if
that.
I can just ban one card and that's all the power I have?
What if you'd only unban or ban one thing?
Unban.
Or you use your unban on Painter's Servant instead of banning Cyclonic Rift?
No, I would unban Cyclonic Rift.
Okay.
I'd be on that free braids train.
Yes, me too.
Free braids
You
all
guys
day.
are.
Just for a week, see what happens.
Free braids 2018.
Just
Let's
till
play
January
real
15th. Braids will be fine.
Here we
Right,
go.
until January 15th. Like,
I worry this is what we're gonna get out of the rules committee a little bit.
It's, right, it's just
They're like, all right, everybody, you got 2 weeks to play Sylvan Primordial. See what happens.
like a rules holiday.
I slammed Sylvan Primordial so fast.
Yeah.
which all my
Here's the
friends-
thing. Have you ever heard of a little movie called The Purge?
Yeah.
One day out of the year,
Nothing's
Sheldon's
banned.
like, and nothing's banned. And silver border, gold border, Yu-Gi-Oh, whatever you got, jam it in.
I summoned Exodia.
I think much like The Purge, there'd be like a big rush on just getting some cards the day before. It's,
I have majority of those banned cards, so I just slide them in. I hold on to them just in case
And
they
they
get
every
some
day.
wild hair up their butt and they unban something.
Yeah, I do have a lot of brass tablets.
So, Brad, yeah. So 2017 specifically, we had 4 new sets this year, and a Commander product. So that's 5 sets putting new cards into the game. Compared to previous years, were you guys happy with this year, the new product and how it affects Commander?
I have a
Was it
concern
better,
with new
worse,
Commander
the same?
products.
Well, so what's that?
Well, kind of to your last question too is, I feel like a lot of the new Commander products are very well. Obviously, they're specific to Commander. So I feel like over time, if they keep that up, those power level, like what's the new Commander's Eminence, like that for instance, is a really good example. Is going to make a lot of the older cards that we play now kind of obsolete, and then there'll just be this set of like Commander only cards that have those special abilities.
I mean, not even just special abilities. They've just gotten good at designing Commander cards in a way that the cards designed 10 years ago that you're accidentally using as a Commander
Yeah.
kind of can't compete
A
with.
perfect example of that is about the Commander's Anthology. And it comes with the 4 Commander decks. And I remember when I started playing Commander, Kali of the Vast was insane.
Yeah.
You drop in fatties in and you are killing people, and you have to kill it right away. But the Marin of Clan Nel Toth deck that comes in that box, ridiculously overpowered comparatively speaking. Just out of, like, right out of the box, those decks aren't even close to the same power level.
We were talking about that earlier today and how Kalia isn't really a commander that's feared anymore. Like,
Yeah,
she's
what-
still relatively strong, but
every once in a while, somebody will pull out a Kalia deck and be like, "Oh, you guys are in trouble now. I'm playing Kalia," and I'm just like, I am not scared of this.
Not the way I once was.
I have removal and board wipes and just like all these and not scared. And there's a number of commanders like that too that just don't. Especially now that you're mentioning ones that are accidental commanders, Rafik. I mean,
Once upon a time was
you saw
terrifying.
Rafik, you're,
Voltron
whoa!
show up, yeah.
And now Rafik's just like, yeah, he's probably gonna one shot somebody and then that guy's dead.
A big
Well,
part of
But
that
one
was,
person.
like,
And then you're going to
One
die.
person's gonna die. Yeah.
a big part of that is people didn't play spot removal back when Kalia was scary.
Like, the game has also changed. It's not
Yeah.
just the power level.
There's
Right.
a lot less
Yeah.
spot room
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been a lot
that's
of
true, too.
really, really good cards printed in the last 5 years that have really added to the versatility of decks. You can now run weird black-white life switching decks that will win you matches.
Pointing at Lucas here.
Right, right.
Can't
He's
see.
guilty of this, and he's giving me the
Podcast
nod.
listeners.
You can run those strategies with the knowledge that your other end backup is there, where
Right.
previously it wouldn't have been.
Well, Vindicate. I think of Vindicate.
Vindicate.
When Vindicate was $20, I
Right.
really wanted one for a deck. And I'm like, ah, man, I don't want to spend $20 on Vindicate. Now that it's a $4 card, I don't necessarily put it in a deck because Other End and Anguish of Making exist,
And they're less than $4.
and they're
And I
instant
believe
speed.
that- yep, they're both instant
Right,
speed
and
compared to
also
sorcery.
over the last 5 years of playing Magic, it's gotten to the point where I've been like, oh boy, a $4 card. I don't want to put that in the deck. To the point where I'm perfectly okay running a $4 card, and the $4 card is Vindicate.
Right, right,
I
yes.
mean, I was going to spend $20 five years ago on a Magic card, but I mean now I will do that occasionally, and I will happily spend $4 on the card that was $20. Also, we were talking before about the old commanders. Another good example of that was we were talking about Uriel, the Mist Stalker, Mistborn, Mist Stalker.
Mist Stalker.
He stalks in the mist. That's what he does. And that was also one of those like top tier you just can't deal with. But it turns out they print a new Wrath every set. Sometimes
Yes.
2, sometimes 3. And so like naturally hexproof commanders, I think, have gotten less unbeatable than they once were for that reason.
And that's something I've brought up quite a few times, that you should never build your deck just around your commander. Because if you rely too heavily on your commander, it shuts down your deck if they're able to take care of it.
Mm-hmm.
What are you talking about? My Rakdos Lord of Riots deck that revolves entirely around cheating out Eldrazi can't be bad.
Okay, now let me. I brought my Rakdos Lord of Riots deck today because I just did some rebuilding on it last night.
Oh, that deck has a special place in my heart.
And I love it too, but let me tell you, after Partial Paris got banned, it really took a hit. when you can't get that perfect hand, it's just like, but that's the thing. Now that I can't just be like, aha, something to enable my casting of Rakdos and an Eldrazi and Rakdos and 3 lands. Now that I had to build like a regular deck, it's got removal, it's got card draw. It actually just stands up on its own. I don't need to cast Rakdos. I get to 6 mana.
Sure.
I'm just dropping horrible dragons and demons all day long. And it's fine. I mean, granted, it's as fun as like turn 3 Rakdos, turn, 4 Ulamog and Kozilek and everything else, and just all at once. No, but I mean,
So
it's more stable.
To bring it back to Adam's point, though, so are we going to see a game that's swinging in that direction where the new commanders dominate to the point where the also doesn't get played?
Yes.
Oh yeah, we're
We're already there, I think.
But I think that's indicative of Magic as a game.
Sure.
I don't think that like Commander is in any way broken or in danger because they're printing more and more powerful effects. It's just kind of the way the game has to go as far as a growth, trend.
I also think you see a little bit of people that then, the longer they play, they start self-regulating that. They're like, I want to build a new deck, and I'm absolutely not going to use a pre-con commander. I'm going to dig back and find something old and janky and beat you with Barktooth Warbeard.
Yes.
Because there's like serious, but there's like a lot of style points then, and that matters to people too. Like people like being able to do that. That becomes the next level where you kind of get hipster about it.
What was, we don't have one of our fellows, Zach, here, but he played with the Joriel deck, that Spell Shaper. That was one of the most hilarious decks I've seen.
Yeah.
And, I mean, what a terrible commander to build around. But
Yeah, it works.
It works, it's great.
Another thing I wanted to say was, like, you could be playing Jund, and if you want to play Jund, most people immediately point towards Prosh. But if I wanted to build Jund, I'd probably go towards Zia Aaron, I believe was it.
Yes.
The
Yes.
3-drop
I want to
insect,
see a Zia Aaron
where you
deck.
pay Jund, tap it, draw a card. Just because it's a little bit more fun than just slapping down Prosh and winning. And it's just, I like really low drop commanders.
It's also netting you good advantage if you're
Yeah.
tapping to draw cards, so you can, especially in those colors, you don't have great card draw to begin with.
Right, it's a nice, like, weird outside.
And there's a lot of style.
Negative
There's a
effect.
lot of style points in winning a game with the Zeriarian versus the Prosh.
There's a thing I think that 2 Wizards can do, and kind of has done too, to self-regulate this effect, which is that in a lot of the commander sets they'll print, a face commander who's real good, and they'll also print like 2 or 3 new commanders that are just kind of bananas. And I'm thinking of like Arjun or the Katsuo is the snake. Like those guys they're not good, but I like that they kind of explore this weird legendary commander space inside of those decks.
Yeah.
It's the Miri Weatherlight Duelist.
Yeah.
a really
Yeah,
interesting
that's a
effect.
real
She's
interesting
really
one.
good.
She is really good, and she's really good if you want to build a Voltron deck where you're like, if that's the thing you want to do, but you don't necessarily want to run Rafik. You want to do something new with your deck. You can run that Miri, and it's going to be okay.
Right.
I like that.
And it's good as a card in your Arabo deck.
Yeah.
And it's good as a commander. Like they've done much better job. For a while there, you had really schizophrenic decks that they would release, where
Yeah.
this
2013 was real.
right.
Yep.
Those were like 3 of the most like mashed together
It's like
shards
Those are
of
my-
decks.
we've got
That's my
33.
favorite commander set. It's 2013.
2013, 'cause-
But like
Yeah.
Derevi had nothing to do with the
it was-
rune that had nothing to do with
Yeah.
Ravinia.
I know.
I mean, all that sweet Nekuzar, Jaleva
Right,
synergy.
yeah.
I think this is all cyclical. I mean, the Eminence commanders are good. There's no doubt about
Yes.
that. They are good, and for that, we've seen them stick around a little longer than I think the typical pre-con commander sticks around. I mean, Atraxa and Brea, you still see them, but I think I see Brea more than Atraxa.
Well, and Atrax and Brea both give you a real. I think those are actually especially appealing to new players because if you pick up one of those decks, all you have to do is look at cards and be like, oh, counters, proliferate. Oh, this is a synergy.
Yeah.
And same with Brea. You're like artifacts. I have artifacts. I can put those in the deck, and I think a lot of the best commanders for players do that. You know.
Yeah.
But where you look back at like 2014 when it was the Planeswalkers, those really didn't stick around as our awesome new deck for very long, if they did at all, because of I think it's just how the product gets built. Yeah, they get better every year, but they also have to entice the players to want to continually to use them for the whole calendar year as their EDH deck.
Yeah. I also think those Planeswalkers, I think that if they ever do Planeswalker Commanders again, they're going to have to revisit how they did that because, like, out of those decks, like you mentioned, the cards that have stuck around as Commanders were not the Planeswalkers.
Nope.
Like Titania is.
The exception of Duretti. Duretti is really strong.
Yes. but then if you see Duretti, you're like, oh boy.
He's strong, and he also fits in other decks. He'll probably fit in your Brea deck. And
Yeah, speaking of Commanders you don't see much anymore, I feel like Shroom decks just turned into Duretti decks.
Or Brea decks.
Or Brea decks,
Yeah.
you know, if they wanted to keep all those colors.
Yeah. So kind of tied into that is I think this year is the first year we saw where whoever was designing Standard was actually talking to whoever was making Commander products. Because clearly they designed the Commander set this year to tie into Ixalan a little bit.
Right, with the
with white vampires and with the tribal theme simultaneously coming out at the same time. I would assume that's going to be a thing moving forward because my guess is if you're the new CEO of Blizzard who was hired a year ago and he's looking at this company and he's like, oh, our number one product is Commander, or number two, whoever's math you use. So why are we not doing more with that? Like, I'm sure that was his question, because how would you not ask that question? Right. And this seems to be what the then answer was, well, you guys better start doing more with Commander.
Right. We know the answer is some guys like shuffling those feet and like, well, because like the, it's kind of more of a modern focus scene, and it's a lot invested in that.
And that was immediately right.
So,
it was thrown out the window.
If they're so invested in modern, then why do they only run one Pro Tour, if that, of modern?
It's secondary market; they can't control it.
Yep.
Right.
So, if we're going to continue to see that as well, is that going to be was that a good thing or a bad thing as we see more and more Standard cards designed with Commander in mind? Because clearly, Gishath and Becca Brass, who are both Standard cards, those are Commander products in Standard.
Right.
Well, I think it's like it just trains you to go, oh, I go out here and I find more of these cards, and if they can design things effectively, then you can really dig deep and find like really old cards that do the same thing, and that's like really what keeps you playing Commander when no one's around,
Sure.
And I think part of it too, and it's brilliant on Wizards' part, they're generating product that ties into itself. Because previously you could look back at years and say, well, Commander products are just for Commander products, and occasionally you get that one booster rip where you're like, this would go great in my Commander deck, but very rarely do you ever feel like Standard or any like packs you're opening were affecting your deck building. Now, however, I think they've realized that Commander is actually driving sales, and that they're trying to build product into that by conglomerating their streams, I guess you could call it.
It's more fun for the customer to crack those packs to get their utter end or anguish on making versus going to their shopkeeper and paying the $2 for it. They'd rather spend the $4 a pack or 3 for $10 just the chance to crack it and rip the card they need for their deck.
It's a trap. Don't do it. It's a trap.
It's a trap.
It's a trap. I think that's actually a good place to maybe segue right into the next point here on this handy dandy sheet here, which is all the reprints.
We had a lot of reprints this year.
We had a lot of reprints, and I feel, again, a lot of times when you, in previous sets, you're cracking packs, you don't say, oh, this will go great in my EDH deck. You say, like, I guess this can go in my EDH deck. But, a lot of these reprint sets and a lot of the things now, you kind of go, oh, yeah, this is a good card for my EDH deck.
Well, in this year, we had Modern Master 17, we had Iconic Masters, we had a Commander's Anthology, and we had From the Vault, which we get every year. But that's still, From the Vault this year, were 15 relatively useful cards, being the dual face cards. So that's a lot of new stuff coming back into the system at much cheaper prices than it once was. Last week we were talking about austere commands at $4 all day long.
Yep, I bought a couple of them at $4.
Right.
I did too.
So is that good for the format?
I don't like the art.
I think so.
Because here's the downside. I agree it generally is. But that you get a situation now where people who have a little bit of money and are willing to spend it, well, now at $50, you can buy your Mana Drain, or at $50, you can buy your Force of Will or your Mana Crypt. That maybe wasn't something you would buy when it was $200. But the people that can't afford, still can't afford it. So like now you've gone from like this tier of people who could afford it before, the 1% of Magic players, to the other 99, versus now you're looking at like maybe a 20% that can afford these cards, because a lot of people still can't. So is that a problem or no?
I want to make a joke here about tax cuts for the middle class.
Right. Oh, no, go there.
Time
Go
or
right
place.
ahead.
I also don't know what it
Max
is
is, like,
yet.
bring
I'm
it
going to
on,
have to
baby.
workshop it a little bit.
Now, I'm not saying that's necessarily a problem, but I think it's maybe it is a little bit.
Well, I think one thing that is a possible thing, too, I think that we see that's a little bit mid right now, maybe more with more reprint sets, is the direction of, your friendly neighborhood EDH meta kind of shifts towards whatever those cheap reprints are now. I mean,
Sure.
all of a sudden, you see more commands, and all of a sudden you see more of this, and you don't see more RuneScar Demon though, even though he's like $150 and he's great. I just don't know. He's a great guy.
I feel like that whole rant was just building up to you plugging RuneScar.
Right.
Listen, RuneScar
That's the goal of Blake today.
Demon. Buy low, buy high. Buy RuneScar Demon.
I see someone bought out all the RuneScar Demon hoping for the spike.
all the foils, just
I don't have a problem with it. I mean, all the big time collectors still have their reserve list stuff,
Right.
which is still valuable and very cost prohibitive.
Oh, I hold on to.
And you can still make an extremely competitive commander deck for very inexpensive if you want. So it's kind of like all parties are involved now, kind of, in my opinion.
Now, I will say this, now this doesn't apply everywhere because it's our particular meta, but having seen Mana Crypt drop from $150 or $200 down to $60 or so, is it at right now?
Sure.
I've not seen many more Mana Crypts, despite the fact that the price has dropped, and I've not bought any more of them just because it's a card that I don't care I don't care about that explosive first turn or second turn necessarily.
right. If you're not playing that competitive style in a competitive meta, there's not, I think, a huge draw to shove him into a deck.
I think that really creates the question, and it's sort of, we're all kind of merging around it, which is, what is the price cutoff for a card that makes it too expensive, right?
Sure.
Because ultimately, you can reprint into the dust, or you can try and help stabilize a secondary market. But if cards still, Flusterstorm is a perfect example, where it was, $90 for one, and what is it down to now? I think it's in the 30s.
It's low 30s, if not upper 20s.
Right. Is that now going to be seeing more play based on the fact that it's cheaper, or is $20 still a margin where people go, I don't know if that's actually worth my
I think it's certainly a margin. I think it's that second margin there. People go, especially because it's Flusterstorm.
Well,
That's
sure.
not. But I do think that $20 is still a.
Let's switch cryptic command for Flusterstorm, because
Sure,
that's
yeah.
the same example.
Yeah.
At
Right.
one point it was a $75 card, and now it's a $15-$20 card. Is
I mean-
$20 still too much for a cryptic command?
In a way, I think yes, because they've just reprinted it so many times that I feel like it's got more reprints. More
Well, and then
reprints
once
in
it hits 15, it can show up in a lot more places than it can when it's at 40.
Right.
Right. And it runs into the Tarmogoyf problem where someone opens their one cryptic command and they need 3 more
Right.
if they want to run multiple blue decks, or if they're building into Modern or Legacy. Legacy's a terrible idea for command. Don't do that.
Unless
do with
you
your mana.
experimental legacy players. I do think, too, mentioning these commanders, one nice thing, though, is that with these higher powered and maybe more obvious build around commanders that you're getting in not just the commander sets but the standard sets, is they make it more possible for you to make a cheap EDH deck with some of the lowered stapled and things without those $20 cards. I think, and actually this year I thought was pretty good about that, especially the Dragons deck and the Vampire deck. I mean, you can throw $50 worth of $4 to $1 cards in those decks and have a very competitive, speedy, mean deck,
Yep.
And
So my question is that, and I agree with that phenomena, is that it's easy to make a much more consistent, fast, competitive deck that's still very EDH-y. But the place that I would be concerned that there'd be a problem, I'm too far removed from this situation, but going from having a basement group and moving into a much larger LGS group, like you're going to be underpowered, and there's this gap. I've been there. I don't know. I assume everyone else has, where you were like, oh, I can just spend my way out of this, but you waste all this money on like suboptimal things that aren't as fun, just because it's just what you've seen. Your skill and knowledge hasn't allowed you to as easily build a deck that fits into the meta.
I'm real curious about that. That actually is a good point. I'm real curious how this is going to go because I have a roommate who's just gotten into EDH, and we've played some games in the basement with his coworkers playing the Rover, and it's great. And his schedule's changing, so soon he'll be able to come to the shop here and play with us. And he's like, "Wow, is it Chronomancer? That's a real good card. I'll put that in my Wizards." I'm like, "Yeah, it sure is, buddy." Okay, we're gonna do this though. We're gonna make this work.
He is so sheltered.
But I mean,
Exactly.
I think it's gonna be fun too. You get to see this huge value.
But isn't that ultimately the joy of Magic, though, which is growing into the play space that you've provided?
For sure.
You can be an SCG grinder, you can be a casual commander player, you can be a 1v1 commander player. Each one of those is going to dictate a different set of cards that you're going to be familiar with. And I think there is consideration for what is available to those learning players, and are they going to be spending money on things that they shouldn't be? But there is some thought to the idea, and maybe this is the wrong way to think about it, but if a card is $20, when I was new, I was thinking, if this card's $20, there's got to be a reason. And I would find the reason, and then I would be like, oh, that makes sense, and put it in a deck because it's a good card.
Yeah.
And that's a story of how I spent $20 on Feldar Sovereign. I didn't do that, but oh boy, can you imagine?
Yeah.
I would kind of want to put Adam on the spot here, and I apologize, but you're the one in the room that's been playing Commander the least. So I think this discussion right now, really, you can actually might have a lot to say, since you went from playing Standard with Frank to playing EDH with Frank, and then you all of a sudden started showing up at the card shop, and this is exactly what you probably went through, is do I have to buy my way to stay competitive, or what did you do to feel like you could keep up with the rest of us?
Coming into a very experienced and seasoned play group like this one is difficult as a new player to try to, one, learn the format, because you're going to come across so many more cards in Commander than you do in the Standard, for instance. But then also, it's like, okay, do I need to spend $1,000 on this deck to make it competitive? And I've actually found the answer to that is really no. I would actually say that one of the first decks I put together it's no longer together, was Perforos, just mono red Perforos. Easily one of the most competitive decks I've had. Like if I still needed to make a try-hard deck for under $100, that would be it. I mean, it won probably more than it lost, surprisingly. But
It's not surprising.
Right, yeah.
No,
it's terrible. I mean, I've lost to it many times.
I took it apart because it just wasn't that fun to play. But there was a huge learning curve there, especially with just experimenting with new commanders and stuff. I mean, I've actually bought 2 or 3 whole decks that have never been played here, just because someone eventually told me, like, that's a really, really spiky commander, and you're going to get hated off the table, Azami. Or I spent the money to build the deck and brought it a few times, and it was just like not fun to play at all. Like Bruna, Light of Alabaster, that was another mistake. Not fun to play in the least, and so that's an expensive mistake. So.
Do you have tips for like other new players that may be listening? Like, what do you do now to, besides just, so you obviously don't drop the money to go build a deck to find out it's too spiky or just not fun to play. So how do you get around that now? Do you do your own research? Do you?
Yeah.
I mean, I know you ask us, like people at the shop, but what else do you do on your own?
Yeah, take your time if you're new and considering it. Take your time and play a lot of games before you start spending a lot of money on your commander decks, because you'll get a really good feel for who you're playing with in your play group and what kind of decks you're seeing, and also just learning from the people who are really knowledgeable, like everyone in this room. and check. I honestly, even now, I will check with one of the 3 of you usually before I build a whole new deck and spend like $400 on something that's going to get taken apart in a week.
I mean, that's just good advice in general, is just ask people who have experience playing.
And granted, every shop is different, or anywhere you play is different. I mean, we aren't really a big competitive EDH meta here.
I visited some shops up in the Twin Cities a couple weeks ago and was just playing some EDH, and I mean, people were busting out like on multiple Armageddons, and I was like, wow, what's happening?
Yep.
I'm not ready for this. Armageddons.
Yeah.
But I mean, everybody was fine with it. You know,
Right.
that's just what the playstyle was like there. It was,
I mean, as someone who plays both a lot of casual commander and has 2 separate 1v1 commander decks, there is definitely pros and cons of each, and they both have different play styles that I like.
I feel like we do like a whole thing on 1v1 Commander because
Yeah.
that meta's really taken off in the last 6 months.
Yeah, I'm
Especially
really-
around here.
Yeah.
Right around here. I mean, especially, and I think the way that in which 1v1 Commander has influenced the local non-1v1 Commander is really interesting.
I've definitely lowered the curves in all my decks.
Right,
just to
everybody's
make it a lot
curves is
more
lowered,
consistent.
and also it's real hard sometimes to even find like a good bribery target, just because people are playing much tighter synergistic decks.
But I also think that there's an element where people have used that as their competitive outlet, and then then they're more likely to make their multiplayer deck not be. It might be tighter, but it's also not going to necessarily be like a brutal cutthroat deck because they get their competitive spirit out doing 1v1.
I mean, if I'm playing like a real aggro-y Bruce 1v1 deck, but then that kind of gets out of the system, and then I can go play like Kempo.
Okay.
I mean, and
yeah.
that's how I play Commander, which is I primarily enjoy playing Legacy, which is that consistent set. It's a decision tree. What is my opponent doing? What am I doing because my opponent's doing it? Whereas in Commander, I cast a Ravo, and then I'm gonna make my cat a 20/20 with Trample, and probably get condemned or passed or whatever the heck. I never win. Okay, it's great. I love it.
So on the 2017 subject here to kind of wrap up, what were the best new non-legend, like non-commander at the head of the deck cards? So like utility cards in your deck, not legendary cards that we got this year. Because I think we got quite a few really good future staples.
What's that 5-drop that fetches basics based on power of your creatures?
That one, Traverse the Outlands.
Traverse the Outlands.
That card is great.
So can I go on a quick diversion here?
Sure.
I swear. Okay. So I've been wondering for a while, can Wizards print a 5-man like
This discussion.
Gilded Lotus? Gilded Lotus. It's 5 mana, taps for 3, but you don't see any green sorceries that could do that, even though that's more in Green's color supply. Not even like it lands into play tapped. Is that just too good? Because I think Traverse the Transverse the Outlands is like on that border of that. If you can get 3 lands for 5 mana, that's like too good. And this is even better.
I frequently, especially I play in a Rabo deck that's tribal cats. It's shamelessly bad, and I put little meow beasts onto the table and turn them sideways. But I have commonly cast it, had the ability to get 12 lands out of my deck, and only had like 4 left to grab. I mean, that card is so.
That
good.
card is bonkers.
It is so good.
So that's one that in future years, and I would agree with. In the future years, you're going to be looking back at that, not maybe as a rift, but like I'm building a green deck and it's going to get a Traverse because it's such a good card. It's tough to not put in a green deck.
Only if it's a green deck that plays creatures.
Right.
True.
Yes.
It does require like at least 4 or 5 power in a target creature in order for it to be relevant.
Or just a good commander that you're going to have out frequently often does that
I was
too.
hoping for more. We could add it in a laugh track there right after I said creatures, because that was what I was going
right.
for. Like,
A green creature deck.
Green creatures.
Or maybe in the distant future they won't play creatures in green decks anymore.
My green
Hornet Sting.
Hornet Sting deck.
The reign
Yeah.
of Mark Rosewater will be all like, we love Hornet Sting effects now.
To the
That's where the
dome.
color pie is.
I'm
Yeah, I had
running
an
Green
absolute
Growth
deck, or
Defense
Green
and
Growth
Hornet Sting.
True.
That's all I'm doing.
So what else was there this year that you guys liked?
All the hours I thought were pretty interesting.
Oh,
From Hour of Devastation, especially the which one's the Wrath?
The black
The
one?
planar cleansing for
Oh yeah,
better.
the white one for 3 mana.
Yep.
Yeah, for
Hour
3.
of Revelation.
Our
Yeah.
Revelation's amazing. I think that speaking of 5 mana green ramp spells, Hour of Harvest, Hour of Renewal. I'm blanking on which one's
I
which.
have no idea.
Reckoning, I think.
Is that one
Is
Reckoning?
that the green one?
Is that the green one?
I think that's
Hour
the
of Reckoning. I think that one's real solid. Even if it was just 2 lands, it's any land, and getting 2 lands as Prime Time has taught us can be very handy.
And hey, if you got deserts,
Hey, if you got the
zombies.
deserts, get some zombies in
Yeah.
there too.
The white one I think is one of those. For some reason, board wipes seem to take a while to become part of the scene. Like Merciless Eviction no one ran for years, it seemed like. And all of a sudden people were like, oh wow, it's a modular exile effect that hits that hits whatever I want. That's really good. So I think the white one, like people eventually, or Blasphemous Act. Blasphemous Act took a few years for everyone to realize a 1 mana board wipe's really, really useful. So I think the red one too, like, or the white one, 3 mana for a Chroma's Vengeance. That will eventually be something that.
Except for the blue one. The blue one's terrible.
Yeah.
What is the blue one?
It's like eternalized.
Exactly.
It's XX blue. Eternalize that many creatures from your graveyard. Even I don't think it's even anybody's graveyard. It's ugh.
Standard WotC hates blue now.
Right.
Because people cry that counter spells are too good, and they're just like, well, let's make it mill and boring. And I'm sad.
I don't know what you're talking about. Cancel is the best counter spell ever.
You're just trying to.
I am trying so hard.
I'll like just another one of my favorite
across the
cards for
table,
Commander that's come out of Amonkhet. But Approach of the Second Sun
That
is
card
probably
is great.
well, and I love it because it's a one-hit win card, which is normally something that I just go like, it makes me groan. But I really like it because when you play it, you're kind of just saying to the table, all right, rest of the game is arch enemy. I'm gonna be dead in like 4 turns.
It's like
I had to go home
After
anyways,
too
so let's
early.
go.
Exactly. But at least this way, you're either
you're
gonna
die.
win. Like if Rift came with that rider we mentioned of you die in the next turn. If Rift came with a rider, you win next turn. You'd be fine. Well, not fine. It'd be much worse. But
Anything else jumps on anybody?
Torment of Hailfire?
Oh yeah.
oh yeah.
That's got to be in there, right?
I've
mean,
absolutely replaced every Exsanguinate with Torment of Hailfire because that card is just much more entertaining to resolve.
It's always
than
like seeing
Exsanguinate.
people just like, oh,
Like,
I got
hold on,
7
okay.
cards in hand.
Exile-
I wanna keep
It's-
this
discard
guy,
my
this guy.
hand. Like cast a lingering, make some spirits. I can get there and just
It is amusing to cast Torment and people forget the discard effect, so they start sacking like their whole board state off. You're like, you could have discarded cards. You're like, oh what?
But it just ends the game. There's so many times when you're just
right.
It's turn 11, well not even 11, like turn 16 or something, and the game's gone long, and you're like, okay, and everyone's tapped out, Torment of Hellfire, and you're like, all right, well, that's it, we're done.
All the flip enchantments to lands are all
Search for
very,
Almost
very
Search
good.
for
Those are
Escanta
all-
is so good.
Oh man,
I
The
think the
artifacts
whole-
are like almost every one of those cards is at least useful.
Speaking of cards that are made for EDH and put in standard sets, I feel like all
Those
of
flip
those
cards.
people looked at and said, "Oh yes." I mean, there's not that many guys' cradles that you can put in that people are gonna be able to get. But you know what? We can do that for you, EDH
Right.
players. We'll get you
And
there.
they're making, what are the people are predicting new ones? Or did
We
they
say-
spoil
we
one?
And the
spoiled
spoiled
one.
and it's a Tolarian
That's
Academy.
right. That's right.
It's a red blue. It's red blue, but it
Red
flips
blue.
to Tolarian Academy.
How cruel of them
I-
to make that land before their much-awaited red-blue artifact commander.
I predict the 5 enemy colored. That's what we'll get in.
I
Rebels.
think
There are
you're
10
right.
flip cards so that we get 5 enemy color and probably 5 artifacts again, like we
Yep,
did
That
last
makes
time.
sense.
Ooh, I have fingers crossed on an Orzhov flip into Sarah Sanctum, as that would
I'm-
go in all of my
You
decks.
know what? That
would
seems...
hold
that
your
would-
cigar to that.
Right, yeah.
Probably
But it's Selesnya.
too. None of those cards either are overly powerful. I mean,
No.
they're
No.
good.
Yes.
No, but
All-
they're not going to break the game. They're not like a straight Tolarian Academy. Or
They're
straight
they're
Blaze
perfect
Blue.
for Commander. You have
Right.
to play them and give everyone a chance to deal with it for a second, and then get your effect, and then everyone's still packing a strip mine for the most part or something like that. So like they're strong, they feel good to play, but they can be dealt with too.
They're also, since they all tap for at least a colorless, they also all have this extra little, which is another commander thing. You've always got to find room for ramp in almost every commander deck. And all of these decks, all these cards provide just a little extra ramp. You worked hard for it, buddy. Here's a land tap for a colorless. Oh yeah, you can get like a vampire or 5 million green mana.
Well,
But sometimes you just need a mana.
We actually had a game this is a couple weeks back where one of the Frank wasn't here, who had a Guy's Cradle out and he flipped
Growing up.
Growing Rights. So he had them both simultaneously, and then I top decked a strip mine or something, and I killed his growing his Intelmont because Guy's Cradle doesn't tap for
Great,
mana if
doesn't
there's no
tap for any
creatures.
mana if you don't have
So
creatures.
I'm like, well, if I have to choose, his Cradle is the worst of the two technically once it's flipped.
I have definitely experienced the look at my opening 7 and Legacy Elves and go, that's a guy's cradle with no other green sources.
Right.
I can't cast spells. Ship it.
I also really like the one that's a Journeyer's Kite that turns into a Maze of It.
Yeah.
And I am attempting right now, and we'll see how it works out, but I'm attempting to jam Conqueror's Galleon in every freaking deck I can.
That card's awesome.
Because I think that
The
deck,
art is amazing.
For the art is amazing, and also just the backs of the Conqueror's Stronghold, Foothold, something.
Yeah.
It's just real good, especially like if you're not running green or blue and you need that just a little bit more mana or you need a little bit of recursion. It does it all. It's like a trading post, but worse because it doesn't make goats.
I'm happy to see more vehicles come out as we continue. I mean, there still isn't enough to do like a vehicle deck, but the fact that they're continuing to support them past being on Kaladesh is good to see.
Yeah, I
That felt
agree.
really surprising to see them immediately after an Ixalan. Like, it's equipment. They're going to be here every couple every set.
Yeah.
I think it's a great flavor addition to Magic too.
Yeah.
From purely a Vorthos standpoint, I mean,
And it reminds me
so often there's conversations about, you know, how do people get around, and like in the flavor community, people have been kind of calling for this addition for a while. So it's a really nice addition to just Magic as a whole.
And it reminds me, I believe I remember reading some interview somewhere where they talked about when they introduced equipment, it was supposed to be a perennial thing. You know, like, oh, we'll try it out in this set, and maybe we'll throw it in a little while longer, and just the response was so positive, they said, throw it in everywhere. And I feel like vehicles, you know, I mean, we might not see them in every set, but I'm happy to see them every 3 sets, you know.
I'm sure you'll probably see at least 1 or 2 per
I'm
set
crewing
at least.
That's all.
I also
Nice.
really enjoy, I would
Right.
love to see more transforming vehicles.
So
Like
you
we
can
saw with
play
the-
your.
I mean, not just for that Grimlock commander, but
Autobots roll out.
right.
Decepticon's mother.
But if you're playing DePaula, that's got to be nice to know that you're not
I'm-
just
I'm
going to be
happy-
waiting.
I'm happy to know that in about 3 years I can finally put together that DePaula deck.
Because like if you're playing a morph deck, you're like, well, maybe we'll get morphs in 2026. Whereas like you think with vehicles, you're like, well, I'm probably going to get a vehicle or 2 every year that's semi-playable in my DePaula
If you were
deck.
playing a morph deck pre-cons, you were already
It's a
like
long way.
consigned.
Yeah.
You consigned this. You're like, you know what? I have all the morphs I'll ever have. whether,
There you go.
whether I need it's all that I need or not. So
So how about the best new commander of this year? Or at least one that you find most interesting that you like the most?
I have a bet for.
I'm currently playing Vona, and I'm a big fan. Being able to blast everything for 7 life.
I was gonna say, he
feels
is
really, really good.
Probably my vote.
Also kind of subtle.
Vota?
Voda's also kind of subtly good. Like it's not flashy. It's just she's just really effective. It's a she, right? I think.
I believe so.
I have played against this deck, and I have to say it is difficult to play against, especially that vigilance and lifelink. Well, and then the tap ability. So you're just like, I'm going to come in for 4, and if you want to block, then we can do this now. But maybe you just wait a while, and I don't have to do this now, and we can just hold it off, and then you end up blocking, and it's a bad time to go against. Can I give my least favorite
Sure.
commander? What was the blue-green one? Voice of Thunder? I forget her name. Tashina. It's this close to like the blue-green commander I've always wanted, and I'm really looking for it.
If she was cheaper.
If she was
doesn't
like
need to be
a
7.
mana cheaper, 2 mana cheaper, I'd be there. 7 mana, even with blue-green, I just can't.
And she's
make
really
it.
strong,
Yeah,
but
and she has this nice strategy of both like being a huge creature and supporting a lot of little creatures that I really like in a blue-green deck, but I just cannot. Ugh.
can't run her as a 14 drop. Or
So
whatever.
close.
Yeah.
So close.
I feel like she has the issue of every single green Simic, or every single Civic commander where it's just like, alright, cool, you draw cards based on some aspect of creatures.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's every single one. Like, the only interesting one was the, where you cast a spell and you get to flip the top card.
Rashmi?
Rashmi. I feel like Rashmi is like one of the only interesting Simic commanders, and even then, she's like a little,
She's like a weaker version of the thing they're already doing, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, really, what was the one? Oversoul of something?
Or so.
Black one?
No, what's the blue-green one from Shadowmoor? The Spirit Avatar. That's the one I've always wanted as a commander.
As a commander.
And, again, Voice of Thunder, real close. Real close.
All right. Anybody else have one they want to mention?
So what's the?
I mean, I would love to do dinosaurs, but it's just not enough.
I've not seen a Gishnath deck yet.
I
I'm
mean,
totally
there's-
going to mention this because I hated on the cards so bad during our preview, but the Dragon is amazing. I screwed that up.
Yeah. Our dragon's really solid.
He is.
Yeah, back on Gishap, I saw a couple when Ixalan first released, but there just aren't enough dinosaurs to support it yet. But hopefully with Rivals, people can start playing.
Yeah.
it.
You know what? This is jumping ahead, but this new mono green dinosaur they spoiled for Rivals.
Is it a 10-10 or whatever?
Yeah, it's like a 10-10 with costs is like 12 mana, but it costs one less
the
for every
fraction
power you
right
control.
Or whatever.
Right, yeah. I think that one's real interesting, and I'm going to try and build around that.
So did you guys also find it amusing that they're hiding keyword trample underneath all the other text?
Yeah, it's like the last thing on the card.
And trample.
He's gigantic.
Yep.
Another real solid commander was the not the Grixis face one, but what's her name?
The one Snapcaster Mage that flies. and
Yeah.
is a
Yeah.
Oh,
Cass
Cass.
is very
yeah.
very good, especially
Yes.
in 1v1. She just
Yes.
is super brutal.
Yeah. I'm partial to a Rabo though. I mean, he's. But here's the thing. He's subtle, but he's strong. I mean, Giant's growth on a creature every single turn guaranteed. Pretty darn good when you're casting low to the ground like 1-drop 1/1s, or Adorned Pouncer MVP becomes a 4/4
Right.
double strike that even if they kill it, it comes back as a 7/7 double strike.
What I like about that guy is like you're in mono white, you got that double strike. He scales real surprisingly to just like and a swing with just a couple kits and 40 damage, you're dead. Just
The deck does work. I mean, I will say, even though I lose frequently, it's because I'm playing against very tuned decks, and I put my work in. I make people work for it.
But I also bet you could tune that Arabo deck to be a really strong deck too. Like,
Absolutely. I just
and you can run all cats. You could like still run an all cat deck, and still have it be really strong.
Yes, and low to the ground too. That's
Yeah.
the thing. It's very aggressive from out the gate.
Speaking of new commanders, I really like Max's. What's her name?
Lycia.
Lycia. Yeah, I really like that Lycia deck.
She has been torn apart.
No.
But Chris is building it.
I gave her to Chris.
Yeah.
This roller coaster of emotions. I can't handle it, guys. God.
Yeah.
I thought Carrie Zev, honorable mention,
yeah.
for not being good, but I loved the card. I thought Carrie Zev was a really cool
Who
card.
doesn't want a monkey?
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Monkey.
A pirate monkey.
Actually, you know who I kind of want to build
Named
around
Jack.
is Captain Landry Storm.
Oh, the mono red.
There's something there. I only wish that her ability wasn't when you sack a artifact or a treasure. I wish it was when you sack an artifact. She gets +1/+0. So that would push her right into
You could run
command.
spell bombs, all sorts of
Right,
stuff
you just be
in
playing like this great mono red eggs deck.
there. Oh God.
KCI deck.
I think I just got excited.
I mean,
Yeah.
and it's not there, but I like the concept. Also, just a nice like 2/2 for 3 with haste. That's maybe a 3/2. It works.
No one's mentioned any of the gods yet out of Fate Reforged.
I was just about to mention
Oh,
that.
yeah.
You
I forgot about
know,
that.
all the monocolor guides you can definitely tell were built with standard in mind.
Yes.
Whereas the Grixis colored gods felt a lot more commandery, despite Scarab God just being very prevalent in standard.
Insanely.
I feel like that was
She-
almost an accident.
Yeah, I
you
feel
know?
like that definitely was.
I
an
kind of
accident.
agree. I don't know if that was planned.
I
But-
feel like that was, and the way I've kind of seen it is, Gideon went away, and someone was like, oh, what do we play? And the first person to play something that worked in that spot was the Scarab God, and that's the one that we go with. That's what it works with now.
Well, the thing about that, I mean, Scarab God would not be nearly as powerful if it didn't target your opponent's graveyard
Yep.
as well.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
yeah.
really the key. To
And if it didn't go back to your
If
hand,
it didn't
at
go
the
back
end.
to your
Oh
hand,
yeah, I mean the
that's the big thing.
pseudo invulnerable is
Yeah.
pretty.
I'm actually surprised I haven't seen more of the Locust God. I was thinking that was going to be all over the place, but I saw
He's
like
a little
one
over,
deck.
man.
Yeah.
I had
a little
mentioned
overcosted.
it's also I think it's such a linear play style
Right,
too.
I mean, you're just drawing cards and then hoping to swing.
You can run wheels and try to kill people, and I think it's a little bit like Nekuzar in a
Sure,
way.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. With an alternate win. Almost.
It's a little bit, right? It's a little
Some
different.
combat
You're,
damage.
you're probably combat damaging versus direct damage,
just-
but it's
I mean,
functional.
it is the same deck.
Yeah.
Though. It's gonna
Right.
run the exact same series of cards.
Yeah,
You're just hoping for creature damage instead of like painful
Yeah.
nightmares, whatever.
I slapped on a windfall.
Bad memory.
Draw 7 cards. Swing for 7.
I made your
I did
own
play
something.
Ronus for a while in my mono green deck as a commander,
As a-
and he was all right. I mean, it's pretty good to have like a big creature that comes down for 3 and like the indestructible. One thing I like about the gods that I haven't played a lot of them is in Commander, like they're a pretty great target for auras and enchanted creatures because they don't turn into something that's not a creature when they're inactive. They can just sit there with like a celestial mantle or something, or
Rancor.
Eldrazi conscription.
That's
subtle.
Had to go there, didn't you?
Listen, if you're gonna just put like 1 or 2 auras in, maybe Eldrazi conscription.
All I'm saying is I want someone to submit a list of 5-color gods and just like give me a tuned list that will actually win.
There's enough. You have with Corona and the gods.
23 now.
Yeah,
for
that's
all?
enough. Corona at the
You
top.
could definitely
I hear
make it
she's
work.
not a real god, though.
Should be a
She's been
fun,
around.
fun god, Corona fun god, right?
Fun god, yeah,
Fun
she's a fun god, yeah.
I think the biggest problem with the monocolor ones is they were all, for the most part, not as good a version as the monocolor Theros gods.
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's definitely
Yeah,
true.
I can agree with that. Although I do really like Kefnet. I think he's got a lot of
Kefnet's probably the
interesting
best.
potential
He's
there.
got some beef to him.
Yeah.
I mean,
He's a
seriously.
big flyer.
Now,
Yes.
although I have seen all of them in decks. I've seen them a lot more in people's decks than I have as the head of a
Is
deck.
there any that people haven't seen as an EDH general? Because the one I can't recall off the top of my head having seen played around here is Otarka and Hazaret.
I've seen a Tarka, or I've seen
Ketra?
Ketra, sorry. I've seen a Ketra in a
Tarka's the
deck.
dragon.
Yeah.
Dark the dragon.
She
Ketra-
is Faye.
I played a
Darwin
Ketra
kills
in the
I've seen
99
that.
of my tokens deck for a while. It's just every time I played her, she just felt like a worse Heliod, and
Yeah.
Heliod
And Heliod isn't that great,
Yeah,
right?
she's not that great in the deck to begin with.
I haven't
At least he gives
seen-
vigilance.
I haven't seen the black-red one yet here.
I've seen actually I've seen two versions of that. Ben was
Scorpion
playing.
god, yeah.
And I mean you build a little bit around -1 counters, and also just like nasty Rakdos tricks.
Yep.
You see your Havoc festivals and all that fun stuff.
Actually, the one that Ben was playing was my pre-release promo that I got, and needless to say, I won that pre-release. real good, absolutely devastating in limited, but that's not.
Kind of surprised I don't see more Scorpion God too, just because he has draw a card on him.
Yeah, he's
Yep.
really
Which is
good.
Always a real I mean again, I'm actually surprised because again I see here's a legendary that says draw a card and has removal and can't be permanently, destroyed. It bounces back to hand. Like how is this not the premier Rakdos general? But it's because of my Rakdos deck, and Rakdos is
The
super
Lord.
fun.
There's the reason they call
Lord
it
of
Rakdos.
He loves parties. They're a riot. So.
Oh Lord.
All right, so I think that covers the stuff we want to cover. Now, one final question before we go. We've got Dominaria coming in March, I believe.
Oh
Yeah. That's going to be, I'm really excited for that. So that the summer set is a core set.
Yes.
So then, and I'm
What,
kind of
only
excited
me?
for that. No,
I
I'm
was gonna say,
looking forward to
I
that a
love
little
core
bit.
sets.
I think bringing the core sets back is a really good addition. I never get excited about core sets. I get excited about like 3 cards in a core set.
They're not fun to
I'm-
play,
I'm-
but they
provide.
deliver what they.
I had to do a lot of deep soul searching. I'm really upset about this core set, and that is because the years are gonna core sets are gonna go like 15, Origins, not even like 17, 18, just like 19.
Yep.
Like imagine if you had DVD box sets, but then they just like
skip two
Skip
random
one.
numbers.
yeah, it'd be
So we don't know what's coming in the fall. Anyone want to try to guess what
I
that's going to be?
have a guess. I think it's going to be the first part of a 2-part Ravnica set. Because they mentioned getting rid of, no more blocks, but they might do connective sets.
Yep.
And they've been a little shy about saying how many of those connective sets, how many of those big sets are going to be connective sets, or one's a sequel to the other. I think this is going to be their first experiment into that. They're going to do like a 2/5 color for drafts kind of thing, like they tried to do with Return and
Gatecrash.
Gatecrash and
Dragon's
Dragon's Maze, and that was kind of a mess. But it was a mess because they split up 3 ways.
Right.
You just had to split up 2 big Ravnica sets, and they're both big sets. I think you got that now, especially since they added like 40 cards to the uncommon slot. I think you can make that work. Also, I really want to go back to Ravnica, so
It's super weird to me because in my head I go, oh, it hasn't been that long since Ravnica, but it's been it was 2012. That's when I started playing
Yeah,
Magic.
yeah.
I mean, it's been a long
I
time
mean,
since
when I
Ravnica.
got
So
back-
it is, I mean, if they were going to return it, it would be soon. I think similar idea, but because we're like leaving Dominaria, I think maybe we're going on the grades tour and we're going to hit Kamigawa again. Fingers crossed. I just
They're never going back.
That's just my guess.
Yeah, it's only because of everything else that Kamigawa was bad. Kamigawa, there's some seriously good flavor there. I think there's I have
know it's going to be.
Now,
Yeah,
and the Kamigawa block did take place
Open
like
standard.
10,000 years ago or something, so
it
it's pretty easy to reuse Kamigawa and change things that didn't work without having to explain it away, other than just saying it was 10,000 years
I
ago.
think the
Right.
next conspiracy that to take place in a modern day Kamigawa.
Maybe that's what Fiona
That
is.
would be
that would-
fine, yeah.
Or
Because
Fiora is.
well, and then what a great place for ninjas with conspiracies.
Good call.
Assassins.
So, I personally think Karn is going to show up on Dominaria, and we're going to go back towards the Mirrodin blocks. Because he's going to figure out a way to get rid of the stupid crap that he brought to Phyrexia and
Alright.
destroyed everything.
Well, he's gonna find a way to spread it even further.
Right,
Perfectly,
right.
it's a perfectly good
He's
plan.
just
You
going
gave
to
it anxiety.
continue accidentally everything.
They're-
It's like a bowl in a china shop, and we'll break it all.
The Gatewatch is going to get together and be like,
Like a
Karn
robot."
will be perfect for our team. He screws up everything he touches too.
What
They'll-
plane
they'll
can we
br-
destroy
Right,
next?
they'll bring him in.
They
He's a
tried to get a
natural
different
fit.
colorless guy, and like that guy.
That guy actually,
jetted.
that guy does stuff right
He
on
thinks he's-
occasion. We don't want
he
any
thinks
part of
he's
that.
So smart. Don't put that in the moon.
We'll take the big dumb guy who just leaves death everywhere he goes.
Wow, when you put it like that, he really does sound like the perfect sixth member.
Yeah, exactly.
Of the
Yeah.
Gatewatch.
That's why Johnny got out. He's like, this is not for me.
Guys,
I
listen.
solve problems on occasion. I
Johnny's
don't
like, I already dealt with that once.
Right.
Elspeth's dead.
Yeah.
I'm not dealing with it.
I do love Johnny showing up and being like, everyone, let's regroup back on Dominaria, coming soon in 2018. And everybody going, no, we're the world's dumbest adventuring party, to the middle of to the plane where our opponent is a god. This is a great idea.
I do like how
So smart.
they figured out how to redeem Jace by making him forget everything that had made him Jace.
Well,
It's
and
called
you
it's
know-
called the reset.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
so
just
it's
like,
right.
no, we gotta make
And
it
I
better.
don't think it's just
No,
that too, because you know what
reset.
also
Oh,
worked
okay.
for Jace, I think,
They
was his
rewrote
origin
Jace.
story in Origins. And this is just the natural extension of that. More memory
Yeah,
loss.
yeah.
Make Jace into the guy from Memento.
Right, yes, right. Every set he forgets what happened in the previous block.
I agree with Blake. I do think it's going to go back to Ravnica. I hope they wait one more set because I'd like to see the Ravnica be the culmination of Bolus versus the Gatewatch. I want to see it all take place there with
I didn't know
Bolus-
that's what I wanted.
Bolus taking over Ravnica because Jace has been gone so long.
I have a theory that we're gonna show up, like everyone's like, just be like, oh, there was something I had to do. That's right. I'm literally the most important person in the government / religion of this entire world. We have to pop in there, and there's this Bolus like standing over the corpse of Niv Mizzet and being like, hey guys,
Look what Ral
sup?
did. Ral did it.
Ral is the new person in charge of this guild because I am now your cool god king, and we're gonna have a big party. Rakdos is bringing the snacks,
Yeah.
and
Demir is
Orzal's bringing
actually
the people
showing
to
up
worship
for
me.
once.
Right, yeah, yeah. That's I would agree with the Ravnica thing too. That was my guess.
Does
as
no
well.
one want to go back to Lorwyn ever?
I kind of do
It's like my
because I really
favorite.
like the idea of a mythological plane where there just aren't humans.
Yeah.
I like
It's a
Lorwyn
really
too,
neat
but I
effect.
don't know.
I don't think they can really go back to it. They played it out pretty well. I mean, 'cause
Yeah.
it's pretty much
That's the
set in
thing.
stone. Every 300 years, it changes from night to day.
Yeah, I don't know.
And they
Yeah,
play
be there
both
for a
sides
while.
out.
Well, they've also mentioned on the short list of settings to go to is a Celtic world, and I think that kind of fits in
There's
that
a lot of
same
overlap.
general area, and I'd like to see a Celtic world.
Yeah.
It would be kind of an interesting twist if, like, because Lorwyn is a plane without humans, somehow, like, an effect brought humans there and they were Celtic.
And they
It's
brought
like,
slivers
no.
of them and destroyed the plane.
Here's an
I
idea.
mean, there's lots of story aspects that could be brought in for that.
What if they did like a new plane, but whether it's at the end of the set or the second set that they tack onto it, you find out it's really a plane we've already been to, set in the future, thousands of years. So
I could get
Well,
behind
that was
that
the
too.
original New Phyrexia plan.
Kind of,
Right,
they
it's
kind of
Start-
did that, yeah. They could
Um,
also like this year with Commander product, they went with the tribal theme. They could easily next year do this is the Lorwyn deck, this is a Kamigawa
Oh, I
deck,
really
this
like
is
that.
this
That'd
is a
be
new
great.
Phyrexia deck, this
That'd
is
be
a
a
whatever,
great idea.
and just
Yeah.
have different things set on those
That would
individual
be-
planes.
I also love that because you could throw in like 3 commanders, per one, and do a little bio for each, and kind of cover different
Right.
parts of that world, So that'd be fun. Maybe even do like some legendary creature versions of planeswalkers before they were.
Yeah, yeah,
at
that'd be
Smart.
super great. All right, I think that is it. Thank you guys very much for trying this out, and I think we'll do it again next year.
This is a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
All right,
That's good.
appreciate it. Thanks a lot.